What is it? What is it, Jeezy?
Where your favorite rapper at? I don't see that. I'm in the streets. Good look behind me. Yeah, hip hop. Nigga, my crib. Yo.
One thing about Rick Ross is that controversy always seems to follow him. Just a single line from one of his songs ended up pulling him into issues with one of the most respected and intimidating street groups in hip-hop. And to make matters worse, that same lyric pushed him into a serious conflict with Young Jeezy. When their teams finally met face-to-face, things didn't stay lyrical for long. The situation escalated quickly, turning what started as a simple rap disagreement into a real-world confrontation that caught the entire industry's attention. Let's break down how it happened. The tension goes back to the summer of 2010, and it all centered around one track, Ross's hit BMF, Blowin' Money Fast. That record was everywhere, booming in clubs, cars, and neighborhoods, with Ross loudly rapping, "I think I'm Big Meech Larry Heaver." The line was meant to pay respect to street figures who carried major weight, but there was a significant issue behind it. Jeezy wasn't just referencing BMF in his music, he had an actual connection to the crew. Jeezy had a real relationship with Big Meech built long before he became famous. Back in the early 2000s, Meech genuinely supported him, introduced him to the right people, and helped him gain visibility that pushed his career forward. Their bond wasn't for attention. It came from real loyalty and mutual respect. So when Ross released BMF and began using names like Big Meech and Larry Heaver in a way that felt casual, many people who knew the real history saw it as disrespectful. For Jeezy and others close to the situation, that lyric wasn't just a catchy line. It was Ross stepping into a world he had no authentic ties to. To them, it looked like Ross was benefiting from a lifestyle he never lived. Not long after the song blew up, Jeezy responded with his own track, The Real BMF, aiming to clarify things. He even included a recorded call from Big Meech himself, where Meech addressed false claims in questionable affiliations. The move was subtle, but delivered a clear message. Ross wasn't part of that legacy. Jeezy followed up with Death Before Dishonor, a freestyle over Ross's beat where he dropped pointed lines like, "How you blowin' money fast? You don't know the crew." It wasn't a full-on diss, but it made the point. He was signaling that the BMF name wasn't something to use loosely. Ross later addressed the situation with a calm tone, saying he didn't fully understand Jeezy's issue. He explained that blowing money fast was a mindset, not a claim to anyone's personal story. Ross initially tried to minimize the tension, saying it wasn't a real beef at all, though the pressure was clearly building. Jeezy also stated that the real BMF wasn't meant as a diss, arguing that people were overanalyzing it. He said he hopped on the beat simply because he respected the music. He explained, "It's not a diss. What am I going to gain from dissing that guy?" He added that if Ross felt offended, it must have come from insecurity. But the calm didn't hold. A few months later, Ross released his track, The Summer's Mine, and this time he aimed directly at Jeezy. Ross rapped lines like, "You throwing up sets, but you really from Cleveland? You just affiliated, really a water boy."
And then he did the BMF song over, and they was beefing off of that, remember? He had and then Jeezy did the BMF song.
The shots weren't subtle anymore. The tension had become official. 2 years later, that lyrical back and forth finally turned into a physical confrontation. In October 2012, at the BET Hip Hop Awards in Atlanta, the long-standing friction between Ross and Jeezy erupted backstage. Reports stated the situation began inside the Atlanta Civic Center, and as soon as their entourages crossed paths, things escalated immediately. The industry hadn't seen a rivalry between two major artists unfold quite like this. Right in the middle of the BET Awards atmosphere, disorder broke out. Both Ross and Jeezy arrived with large teams, and what began as a verbal exchange intensified fast. A little pushing, a few shoves, and suddenly the entire backstage area was in chaos. Security was scrambling, people were shouting, and the energy shifted instantly. The situation didn't calm down either. The altercation moved directly into the parking lot. Things became even more hectic as the entourages got involved, and police had to secure parts of the venue around 7:30 p.m. to prevent the situation from getting worse. Rumors hit social media almost instantly. Hot 97's Funkmaster Flex tweeted claims about shots being fired and arrests being made, which sent Twitter into a frenzy. When authorities eventually cleared the scene, they confirmed there were no shots, no arrests, and no major injuries. Still, the incident had already spread online. Adding to the unusual timing, all of this happened while a tribute to Chris Lighty was being shown on stage. Fans inside the venue weren't aware a real altercation was happening behind the scenes. They just sensed the mood in the room change. Days later, more details began circulating. Jeezy's bodyguard Dredd claimed he grabbed Ross's chains in the middle of the commotion and said that after testing them, they turned out to be fake. Instead of keeping them, he claimed he sold them for cash and bought himself an AK-47. The story kept people talking for days. Jeezy didn't appear too bothered after the BET incident. During his interview with Big Boy on Power 106, he downplayed the situation, saying the event itself went well and that he and Ross had simply crossed paths in the hallway for the first time. According to him, they exchanged words, but it didn't turn into anything serious. If something was going to happen, that would have been the moment, he said, but there was no need to escalate it. Jeezy made it clear he wasn't interested in fake drama for attention. He criticized artists who put on a persona just to move records, saying he wasn't about that staged energy. "I'm a boss, I'm a G, that's just what it is," he said confidently. Eventually, the tension settled. By 2014, both artists chose to let the issue go. With help from a few key people in the industry, T.I. had a genuine conversation with Jeezy, reminding him that nothing irreversible had happened. "If nothing went down that we can't fix, then let's fix it before something real happens," T.I. told him. Around the same period, DJ Khaled acted as a mediator and arranged a meeting between the two. Jeezy later admitted he couldn't even remember what started the conflict in the first place. "I don't even know what we're beefing over," he told Khaled. That conversation finally ended one of hip-hop's longest-running disputes. Not long after, Ross and Jeezy surprised everyone by collaborating on War Ready for Ross's Mastermind album. The track officially marked the end of their feud and reflected growth from both sides. Ross later described the conflict as a lot of misunderstandings, saying their collaboration wasn't only a truce, it was something meant to contribute to the culture.
Though, he took a deep breath. When he stepped up, he had to face me, to get to Jeezy. And when he stepped up, I yanked his chains off.
But here's where things take a turn. Jeezy's original issue with Ross actually came from his loyalty to BMF. And years later, that same loyalty would circle back when Jeezy ended up clashing with the very crew he once supported. In the early days, young Jeezy was still a hungry street rapper, trying to break into the industry. He had the voice, the work ethic, and the story, but not the reach. That's when Big Meech stepped in. Meech recognized Jeezy's authenticity and that genuine hustle you can't manufacture, and he decided to put real backing behind him. With BMF supporting him, Jeezy suddenly had an entire machine pushing his career forward. Meech wasn't just showing support, he was opening major doors. The BMF name carried heavy influence in both the streets and the music world. They promoted Jeezy's records in every club, funded videos, and made sure his sound spread everywhere. When Jeezy released Let's Get It, Thug Motivation 101, it landed like a true street anthem. The authenticity in every line, along with tracks like Trap or Die and Go Crazy, became the soundtrack for hustlers across the country. Jeezy's rise reflected BMF's peak era. When Meech and his crew were living big, their connection wasn't only business, it was based on loyalty and respect. Jeezy often mentioned how Meech looked out for everyone, calling him someone who treated his circle like family. Meech wasn't just a leader, he was a figure who made the people around him feel part of something important. Nothing showed that energy more clearly than their famous Cancun trip. Meech didn't travel small. He flew around 300 people on a private jet, including Jeezy, for one of the wildest hip-hop vacations known at the time. Imagine it, champagne flowing, all-night pool parties, private villas filled with music and good times. It was BMF's world, and Jeezy was right in the middle of it. Every day felt larger than life. But the whole industry also saw BMF's strength. Even 50 Cent admitted he was surprised at how influential BMF had become around 2003. He said when Meech and his crew stepped into a club, even Diddy couldn't overshadow them. They would buy out the bar, open every bottle, and instantly take control of the room. Their impact was undeniable. Still, 50 kept his distance. He respected Meech's movement, but understood that something so big and so public doesn't last forever. And eventually, he was right. Federal authorities started paying attention to what was really behind BMF's rise. Under the music and the luxury cars was a nationwide operation moving serious product. Their high-profile lifestyle put them on the radar. When the federal crackdown came, it was severe. Big Meech and his brother Terry Southwest T were arrested. Just like that, one of the strongest forces in hip-hop collapsed almost overnight.
So in my words, I just feel like a lot of these cats are actors, rappers, and I'm Jeezy, you know what I'm saying? And they can never be me. But I assure you, I can't speak for everybody,
Right.
but ain't nobody putting no hands on me.
I heard that.
Yeah, so I mean, I can't say that for every.
That's when things began to get complicated for Jeezy. When everything was smooth, he represented BMF openly, mentioning them in his songs and wearing the brand proudly. But when the indictments hit and the organization collapsed, some people connected to Meech felt like Jeezy pulled away. They accused him of taking what benefited him, the fame, the credibility, the visibility, and then creating distance when trouble came. Through the years, people tied to BMF remained split on the issue. Some argue that Jeezy simply did what he needed to do to survive in the industry. Others believe he should have stayed fully loyal to Meech, regardless of the circumstances. The situation grew tense. According to Jeezy's former right-hand man, Kinky B, there was even an almost violent encounter with a BMS member. Weapons were drawn, heated words were exchanged, and the moment could have gone very wrong. But Jeezy didn't back down. He stood firm, keeping his composure as the confrontation unfolded. Fortunately, no one fired, and the situation didn't escalate further. Even with all the tension and years of speculation, Jeezy continued to stay respectful. Whenever BMF, especially Big Meech, was mentioned, he never denied their relationship. He consistently praised Meech, calling him a natural leader who influenced the culture in a major way. Still, Jeezy has always made one thing very clear. He was never part of BMF's illegal operations. He said he and Meech were close, spent time together, and had mutual respect, but it stopped there. In Jeezy's words, his success came from his own work, his music, and his dedication, not BMF's activities. The streets may have connected their names, but Jeezy repeatedly stressed that his lane was separate. Then, in 2020, everything resurfaced when Terry's Southwest T Flannery was released from prison and 50 Cent quickly weighed in. 50 went online calling out anyone who had ever been connected to BMF, including Jeezy, Diddy, Irv Gotti, telling them to check in and acknowledge Terry for what BMF contributed to the culture. Jeezy eventually met with Terry, but held firm to his position. He said respect was one thing, but he didn't owe anything. He explained he never moved product with BMF and didn't even know Terry personally, only through Meech. Still, not everyone accepted that version, especially people who felt Jeezy stepped away from the same crew that once helped elevate his name. During the large BMF trial, more conflict surfaced when former member Ralphie Sims testified that Jeezy had supposedly received kilos from the crew years ago. That statement sparked old questions. Was Jeezy more involved than he claimed? But not everyone believed that testimony. J-Bo, a genuine BMF insider who lived the lifestyle firsthand, defended Jeezy. He said Jeezy's story was accurate, that Jeezy wasn't moving weight for BMF. According to J-Bo, Jeezy was just around the crew, absorbing their energy and using the association to strengthen his rap image. In his words, Jeezy was connected to BMF, but he wasn't part of their operation. Meanwhile, on the other side, Rick Ross formed a close friendship with Big Meech after Meech was imprisoned. Over time, their connection grew stronger, but it came with its own issues. Ross's link to Meech sparked another round of tension, this time involving Ross, Big Meech, and 50 Cent, pulling the BMF legacy back into the center of hip-hop's ongoing power struggles. And once again, the cycle of loyalty, conflict, and reputation continued, showing that in this industry, nothing stays hidden forever.